A beautiful morning to you out there. The program is the Dailies on Network Television International, where we keep you updated on our news and current affairs from the papers this morning. Of course, on the papers, we are having as APC boils over principal officers that have been chosen in the House of Senate and House of Reps. We know that a number of lists have been brought out, the chief whip, majority leader, minority leaders, among other principal officers in the House. So it's not really sitting well with the APC, but then we just hope that you keep your seat tight, get a cup of tea if you're in somewhere that's cold, and then, or if you need a cup of water, because of course it's going to be a long talk here on the program. I am Sela Elisha Dasham, and of course Richard Tanzi is here with me, and together we'll be looking at the papers. Good morning.
Morning, Sela.
How you doing?
I'm fine. How about you?
I'm great, thank you so much. All right, let us go straight into the papers. Please do remember we're live on Facebook and on YouTube, so you can be part of the program by dropping your comment or your contribution or story that of interest to you. And we'll be starting with the Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, APC boils over choice of Senate House of Reps principal officers. The writer flowing the story, Apabio announces Bamidele alias Senate leader, chief whip. Reps name Ohobere Chinda as House leader, minority leader. APC chairman dismisses appointment as rumor. We will look at concerns party's governor's pledge. You can find the details on page 6. Igbo hold talks with Delta governor, promise continuous investment in state. You can find the details on page 28. Pro-Buhari corrupt politicians appointees, Archbishop urges president. Tinubu tenders academic records for Chicago University. INEC calls on witness, closes case in OB Labour Party's petition. You can find the details on page 28. Kano Anti-Graft Agency arrests Ganduje's Works Commissioner over alleged 1 billion naira fraud. The details can be found on page 5. Federal government set to introduce cancer prevention vaccine. Despite challenges, we are on path of success, statement coming from Tinubu. Alleged jam, fake result, I stand by my daughter, says Imesoma's father. She is banned for 3 years. You can find the details of that story on page 5. And still on the 2023 election, INEC admits facing challenges. Assembles 427 lawyers to prosecute 215 electoral offenders. At the downside of the paper, NDLEA, UK's crime agency, signed pact to fight drug cartels. You can find the details on page 5. We have a picture story where we can see the chairman, Progressive Governors Forum, and Governor of Imo State, Hope Uzodinma, flanked by other governors addressing media after meeting with All Progressive Congress National Working Committee in Abuja yesterday. And that's all the news on Daily Sun newspaper.
On the Vanguard newspaper, we are starting with inflation. Price of beef, yam up to 24.9%, 22.8% coming from the MBS. So you can do well to find detail of other commodity prices on page 19 of the Vanguard newspaper. Alleged 1 billion naira fraud, court remand ex-governor Ganduji's commissioner. And we have INEC calls one weakness, closes defense in Obi's case against Tinubu's election. On presidential tribunal, Tinubu tenders 17 exhibit to defend his election victory. You can find that story on page 8. The big story on the 10th National Assembly, APC disown principal officers named by Apabio and Abbas. We have quite a number of riders under, but I will be taking a few. As governors pledge loyalty to party leadership. And also we are having here Apabio announces Bamidele Senate leader, Umahi Deputy Ndume Chief Whip, Ashiru Deputy Chief Whip. Also we are constituting special standing committee before the end of July coming from the Senate leader. Abbas names majority leader, Chidi minority leader. As PDP, Labour Party and NPP share other minority positions. So of course this is most of the story you will be finding on the paper today. So you can do well to grab the Vanguard and read detail of this particular story on page 5. Still on the Vanguard newspaper on alleged anti-party activity. Court OK's ex-governor Goji explosion from the APC. And on 2023 polls, INEC engages 427 lawyers to prosecute 215 electoral offenders. Obey sit at home, face closure, Enugu government tell traders and businesses. You can find that story on page 11. We have a number of columns here, one for Baba Ahmed, another for Baba Lola, and then we also have on sports. So you can do well to grab the paper and read detailed stories of interest to you.
On First News newspaper, Jambaz Ejikeme Mosama from writing UTME for 3 years insists she forged her result. Tinubu begs Banks of America for immediate help. We have Uncover app used to create fake UTME results. This is still on Mesoma and forging her JAM results. We have INEC breaks silence on allegations by observers and others. The big story on the paper, cracks in APC over 10th national leadership. We have as Adamu rejects Pabio Abba's principal officers, disagreed with Governor Wike. Tambuwa lose out as Senate President names minority leader. Investigation into Milsoma's result falsification concluded. Coming from JAM registrar says candidate not the only one detected for forgery. INEC opens, closes defense in Obi's petition. We're working with NBA to prosecute 215 electoral offenders, says INEC. Pay Nnamdi Kanu's lawyer 5.5 million naira, court orders activists. Serving soldier arrested over illegal occupation of civilians' properties. Sheikh Hussaini to Tinubu probe, don't reward former governors. Nigeria, Angola, now Africa's biggest oil drilling market. This is a report, and that's all the news on First News newspaper.
All right, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper. On Tribunal, Tinubu tenders Chicago varsity admission letter and others you can find on page 7. Investors suffer 671 billion naira one-day loss as equity tumbles. You can find detail of that business story on page 19. And on Beavers, APC kick as opposition falls, INEC 98% success claim. The big story from the Punch is still on the principal officers. APC protest selection. National Assembly members back Apabio and Abbas. And we also have the writer still telling us selecting Bamidele, Indume, Umahi as National Assembly leaders. A rumor Adamu declares. Senators, reps support Senate President. Speaker says the National Working Committee are aware of the selection. So you find detail also on page 2. Customs sees 3 billion naira smuggled rice, arrests 344 smugglers. You can find that on page 27. On the human angle, slay UI Dawn buried amid tears, Clerk condemns killers. You can find that also on page 4. And we still on the issue of the result falsification. JAM is sanctioned more candidates and actually end a Midsommar probe. You can find more of that story on page 10. We have a picture story showing us a result of some of the flood and bad roads in Lagos State. So you can do well to grab the paper and read detailed stories of interest to you.
On Leadership newspaper, I have no reason to fail, Tinubu tells global community. Taraba civil servants sell of cars. This is on subsidy removal and the hardship currently in the country. You can find the details on page 21. We have numbers. Nigeria earns about $11 billion from crude oil exports. You can find the details on page 2. And on inflation, beef, rice, yam prices surge in May. Detail coming from the MBS. You can find more details on page 7. Tribunal admits Tinubu's Chicago University record as exhibit. The big story on the paper, National Assembly leadership, confusion as APC disowns Akpabio Abbas over principal officers, says party yet to decide on positions. Bamidele Ndume emerged Senate leader and chief whip, and Hobere Kumo Chinda emerged in reps. NWC meets with governors ahead of NEC caucus meeting. You can find all the details on page 4. Carter from Senators Goje's expulsion from APC. And on 2023 polls, EFCC, ICPC prosecuting electoral offenders coming from INEC. You can find the details on page 6, and that's all the news on Leadership newspaper.
Let's take a look at the Nation newspaper. INEC set to file charges against Adamawa Rec. Action to happen in days. You can follow up that story. Remember the chaos that happened in Adamawa regarding fake results. So we can see that here. INEC is set to actually file the charges against Adamawa Rec. You can find all that on page 2. Zulum buy 80 luxury buses to ease transport costs. You can find detail of that story on page 2. We hope to see other governors doing the same for workers to actually ease transportation to and fro to their place of work. And we have road deepens over alleged fake jam results. You can find detail of that story on page 5. IG Egbetuku deploys 35 police commissioners. You can find all of that on page 2. Still on the Nation newspaper, Tinubu witnesses began oral testimony at tribunal, with the writer saying 14 document comprises U.S. letter on APC candidate admitted in evidence. You can find that story on the front page and more inside the paper. Reps probe alleged abuse of 2.3 trillion naira education tax by Tetfon. You can find that story on page 2. The big story: Presidency governors back Bamidele Ndume Umahi, with the rider saying critical stakeholders consulted, says the Senate leader, how majority and minority principal officers were picked. And we have a column actually showing us that of the Senate and the House, where we have Bamidele as a Senate leader, we have David Umahi as a deputy leader, we have Ndume as a chief whip, we have Lola as the deputy whip, we have Simon Matcon as the minority leader, we have Oyewomi as the deputy minority leader, we have Darlington as the minority chief whip, and we have Rufai as the deputy whip. And then for the House of Reps, we are having Julius as the House leader, Abdullahi as the deputy leader, Usman as the chief whip, Adewomi as the deputy whip, Kinsley as the minority leader, Ali Madaki as the deputy leader, Ali Isa as the minority chief whip, and we have George as the deputy whip. And so you can do well to read more of this on the front page and also on page 4. And we have President Policy Excite Bank of America. You can do well to find what all of that is all about on the front page and inside the paper. MBS report, food prices, airfare rose sharply in May. You can find that also on page 7. Adopted Imam tied to a tree. You can find that story inside the paper. And that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Guardian newspaper, Tinubu Shetima opened defense today in Obi Labour Party's petition, imperative of separating AGF from Justice Minister. Pendev, Huriwa, others call the Guardian high at 40. The big story on the paper, Tinubu Adamu's Cold War worsens as Apabio Abbas appoint principal officers. You can find the details on page 6. Over 400 Kuje escapees yet to be captured 1 year after prison break. Kano anti-graft panel probes Ganduje dollar clips 1 billion naira fraud. You can find the details on page 30. Huriwa accuses JAMB of violating Imsoma's right, wants management probe. You can find the details on page 4. And that's all the news on the Guardian newspaper.
No, Rachel, most of the stories on the front page, from the issue of forgery of results to even that of the 400 escapees from the prison break, actually tells us that something is wrong, that there is a lapse in our sector, there is a lapse in the way the system is working. Because you will be expecting that, looking at the fact that I do not know why it took JAMB this long to get to discover that whether the result was being forged or not. We've seen that already being said that they have found the app that was used, and she is not the only person. But regardless of whether that result was being forged or not, I think they should tell us that JAMB need to sit up and do something about their app. That is just to tell that a lot of people have been forging results before now, but they just got to discover it now. In the same vein, we've had even NYC coming out to say a lot of people are also forging their certificate, and that is tell us that this has been going on for long. We're just getting to discover it now. So I just hope that this will open our eyes to sit up and do something better. I'm surprised that till today we're still yet to find about 400 escapees from the Guje prison break. and that was since the last year. So this
Yeah.
is over a year right now, nothing is being done. And you keep asking, what is the problem? And I asked the same question, you remember, during the issue of the Bura. I said, are these people not Nigerians? If they are not Nigerians, are they in neighboring countries? Are they out of reach that we're unable to get them? Are they spirits? The same thing, we've been having issue with insecurity, and whenever I hear unknown gunmen, I frown on it, because they are known gunmen. They are not spirits. They are men that live in the midst of people. So we know who they are. But it's just that somebody somewhere have been paid to keep quiet, so they don't get to be discovered. So I hope that I'm happy to see that the IG have actually appointed a number of commissioners, so the commissioners will be able to work with their men. Let us see arrests being done of these people, because the fact that they are still out there, there is a risk. They are living in the midst of people, and it's really risky at a time like this. So we hope something will be done when it comes to talking about forging of results, that we should do something about that. I really don't want to talk so much about the big story that have been going on our papers, the chaos in the APC, because this is really something that is not just today that's been on the paper. I mean, we've been seeing that they have been back and forth when it came to the minority leader, the fact that the PDP did not want Tambuwal, and then we've seen that finally right now the minority has been given to Simon Marcon, and then we're seeing the APC is even frowning on some of the principal officers that they didn't sit well with them. So we're hoping that they are going to meet. So I really do not want to, talk so much about that, but I hope that after the meeting, something will come out reasonable out of it.
Of course, Sally, about the falsification of JAM results, our backwardness in certain things always surprises me, Sally, not because of anything, but because you wonder if JAM, you decided to go electronic or digital, let me put it that way, then you are supposed to be top notch in your services. You're supposed to keep improving and improving, because I remember when I wrote JAM, it was very manual. It wasn't digital. We wrote it on paper, and we just went to the when it was out, we printed it. It was that simple. Now if JAM, you are going digital, and then you know that with the way the cyberspace work, that there could be manipulation and all of that, then you are also supposed to keep upgrading your system. You're supposed to keep upgrading your technology to make it in such a way that there won't be this kind of thing. Because just as you said, Selem, this just happened to be on paper because this girl got like a good publication. She got 3 million from Innocent, and they said, yes, I think that is why this one became an issue. But a lot of people, it means that for the past years, probably ever since JAM decided to go digital and we are using the computer based, it means for a very long period of time, people have been falsifying their results, and JAM haven't been detecting it or know about it, but I've been silent about it because maybe for some reason this one made it to the papers and now we know it. So we just have to be on the top when we decide to take a certain way. We have to be sure of what we're doing. It's the same fight and struggle we're having with INEC, where you assured us that we are going to have our result transmitted electronically, and it didn't happen. So why are we always deceiving ourselves when we know we are not ready or fully set to do certain things? Why are we always going full head into it, and then we just end up disappointing ourselves? I hope that JAM not only probe other people who have been found like that, but make your system in a way. Why will another app be able to falsify? I mean, I know like tech has developed, we have a lot of programmers, we have people that have gone ahead, but still you are supposed to be ahead of it, because we need our educational system to be at the top, and it means that such should not even be seen or heard of in the first place, because many have gone scot-free with it. And it's now that you are probing this one person. Imagine the many others that have gained admission into medicine by false result. Imagine those who have gained admission into professional courses with a false result, and we can see that she is a science student. Imagine if she wanted to apply for medicine, yes, and with a false. So we just keep having people who are not qualified for certain courses granted admission, and we end up having half-baked professionals, not only because of the system, but also because they were not qualified to be in that position. So I just hope that JAM sits up and every authority responsible that such things don't occur sit up and do their job appropriately.
Of course, Rachel. Well, let's take a look at the next paper, which is the Daily Independent newspaper. CSO call for asset declaration detail of Zamfara governor. Doubt hit $5 million worth. You can start reading the story on the front page and continue to read inside the paper. Enugu government threatened to shut schools and market over seed at home with the rider Anambra government. IPOB denounced seed at home. You can read more of that inside the paper as well. On National Assembly principal officers, Apabio Abbas Sean PDP name weakest men minority leaders. With the rider, APC chaired its own principal officers announced by Senate and Reps. We will resolve gap arising from the National Assembly action, says Ozodema. You can find more of that story inside the paper. Tribunal admits Tinubu's Chicago varsity record U.S. visa in evidence. INEC closes defense against Obi Labour Party petition with one weakness. And we have Adebutu PDP storm election tribunal with 8,000 exhibit against Abiodun. You can find that on page 7. Senate to screen service chief in 14 days, constitute special standing committee before July ending. You can find that on page 6. Bank of America offers to give federal government short and long-term assistance. You want to know more about that assistance? Do well to read the story on page 6. On 2023 election, INEC moved to prosecute Adamawa Rec and 215 others. NBA offer pro bono service and lists 427 lawyers. You can find that inside the paper. Senate moved to end police harassment and extortion. You can find more of that story on page 6. I hope that they do something quick about that. We've had a number of people being, abused and being harassed by some policemen on the road. So I hope something will be done about that. Still ahead, I'll be taking a look at the Blueprint newspaper as well. And we have UK-based investigation seek probe. JAM bursts candidate for 3 years on the issue of result forgery. You can find that story on page 5 and 14 of the Blueprint newspaper. And on Tribunal, Tinubu Chicago varsity education record U.S. visa admitted as exhibits. You can find that story as well on page 5. The big story for the Blueprint newspaper, 3 reasons INEC can't join emotive public discourse on 2023 polls, coming from Yakubu, which is the chairman. With the riders, scores exercise high, say the 10 National Assembly more diverse in party representation. Commission reviews police report on Adamawa Rec, 215 electoral offenders. 427 lawyers set to prosecute culprits. You can find all of that story on page 6. Still on Blueprint newspaper, first batch of pilgrims depart Saudi for Nigeria. You can find that on page 5. And on electric vehicles, NNPCL to install charging port at gas stations. And then we also have Nigeria overtakes Angola as Africa's largest oil draining market. I hope that we remain at the top and not to go down. I'm happy with the arrest being done on oil theft and all of that, but we shouldn't be relaxed that we've actually gone up there. But we should be looking toward, I'm talking about having 200 million barrels per day of oil. We are capable of that if only we sit up and do the right thing. So we hope to see more of these things coming up, not because we've taken over Angola and we are happy now. No, let us maintain that top place. That is my desire for Nigeria at a time like this.
We only overtook them with a few thousands of barrels. It's not even up to, if we're at 1.2, we're just above them with at most 500,000 barrels per day. And however, However, we are still not meeting our OPEC quota, so we should also have that in mind, because we are expected to give 1.8 million barrel per day, and we're not even meeting that. And let's not forget also that as it is now, in as much as OPEC is trying their best, left, right, center, the price of crude oil per barrel keeps dropping. So yes, it's not really something to be excited about yet, because we are not meeting our quota, and also oil revenue is not at its best at the moment because of the price per barrel. So yes, let's just keep doing the work, keep the hype and the kudos for now, because we are not yet meeting what is expected from us, and also prices keep fluctuating up and down, so it just calls for more work rather.
Of course. Well, other stories still on Blueprint newspaper. Here we have APC kicks as Bamidele emerges Senate leader in Dume the whip. And then we also have some few writers on the picture story. Here we can see is the INEC chairman with other of his officers while during a review yesterday in Abuja. So you can do well to get the Blueprint and read detailed stories of interest to you.
On Nigerian Tribune, Makinde present as Afenifere leader meet to unite at Ibanjo and Fasoranti. You can find the details on page 15. And on 2023 elections, why ANEC won't respond to EU report, Atiku Obi coming from Yakubu says police findings and unasked Adamawa rec ready. You can find the details on page 5. And on presidential election, Court Tinubu tendered educational records from Chicago State University and a U.S. visa. To open defense today in Obi Labour Party's petition, INEC closes defense and presents document. And on UTME's core controversy, how Mesoma was helped to manipulate result coming from JAM. You can find the details on page 8. Robbers storm Mina Palace, shoot 2 guards. And on sit-at home, gunmen burn police van, dispersed traders. Adeputu tenders 8,000 documents against Apiodun before tribunal. You can find the details on page 5. APC disowns Bamidele, Umahi, Dume, Ohubere, others as Senate reps and principal officers emerge in the 10th National Assembly. You can find the details on page 21, and that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
All right, before we move further with other paper review, we'd love to take a break at this moment. A lot of story, just like I told you in the beginning of the program, a lot is happening. We'd love to hear what your take are, what your thoughts are concerning any of the story that is of interest to you. So do stay tuned when we come back from the break.
Make your everyday informative, make your everyday count. Know your world, daily affairs, national and international, with authentic news events as they unfold on Global News and Zoom on Nigeria, Monday to Friday at 1 p.m.
Thank you for staying tuned. It's still the Dailies on your winning station, and we've been giving you quite a number of stories that have been on the paper, the controversy in the 10th House of Assembly, where we see that it doesn't sit well with the APC. So a lot is happening. The House is boiling, but they will be having a meeting to resolve all of this, whether it is a rumor or not. Of course, in JAM have come out to say that concerning the falsification of the JAM result, Sume has been banned for 3 years, and then also they found out that there are other candidates that have been forging the results. So this tells that a lot needs to be done in regard to the app and what needs to be done in generally when it comes to issue like that. So we'd love to hear what your take are concerning other stories. We've seen that the price of commodities is actually going high, beef, yam, and the rest of it. So we'd love to hear what you have to say about that as well. Our number is displayed on your screen. Please do well to call us, and remember, please, to turn down the volume of your TV set when you cut it, or you can off it if you are tempted to hear yourself, because we love to hear your contribution, and other viewers will also love to hear what you have to say. You can drop your comment on our Facebook page just in case you can get through to us in the studio. I still have Rachel Tanze with me in the studio. Thanks so much, Rachel.
You're welcome, Sarah.
All right, before we go on, I have a comment on Facebook I would like to take. It's coming from Adama Jeremiah, and he says, thank you for the information. It's our pleasure, Jeremiah, to always keep you informed of what is happening in the nation. Well, let's take a look at what the New Telegraph have to say before the calls come in. On pension, investment in fixed bank account dropped by 200 billion naira. You can find detail of the story on the front page and continue to read more inside the paper. Nigerians Purchasing Managers Index eases to 53.2. You can find more of that on page 25. Still on New Telegraph, we have Senate to the IGP and police extortion and harassment.
Okay.
All right, good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Hello.
We can hear you, sir. Go ahead, please. Good morning.
Hello. Good
Good
morning,
morning.
Mrs. Salah. Good morning, Rachel.
Good morning.
Morning.
Sir.
Yeah, I think my comment on this morning is on few issues. First is the Misoma Jam issue. As public institutions, we would want the Jam to have done their due diligence investigations, check the possibility of hacking on their webs, get everything surrounding that young girl's result before even coming public. This is part of the problem of our institution. For example, the DSI will tell you that they have uncovered plan for social thing to be done to affect our security, but you won't see any person paraded. You won't see any example of any person that this thing, you just throw this into the open. That girl is suffering. I'm sure maybe whatever it is, we can't speak here whether the girl is completely innocent or she's at fault. But because Jam didn't do this thing, you can't, a whole institution can't engage such a young girl in a battle of argument. Is unfortunate. And again, we look at the issues of the battle now in the APC and the other party with regard to the Senate principal officers. These are just the problem of our elite. Now nobody is talking about the ordinary man. It is the sharing of the loot of the power now. They don't care what we go through. It is the same regime that have increased fuel prices, inflation, forex, everything. Who is talking about you and I, madam? Nobody. They are not. It's just that they say this thing they have gotten, they are not sharing it well. Look at the inflation. For God's sake, how does an ordinary man? They talk of palliative. It's like before the cat and the horse. Which one comes first? We thought that the horse would be ahead of the cat, but now it is the cat that is ahead of the horse. Nobody is saying how we are surviving. And so we look at it, with hope and continue hope. But the ordinary man should know that our hope is in our own hand. This politician doesn't care about us. Thank you. I don't have a great day.
Thank you so much, sir, for that very insight and positive contribution on issues concerning the nation. Well, let's look at other stories still on New Telegraph newspaper, where we have on Guba Pool, close J-Tor case, Sanwo-Olu, Hamza, INEC tells tribunal. You can find detail of the story inside the paper. Also, we will unite pa Faturanti pa Adebajo in Yoruba's interest, coming from Makinde. You can find that story on page 5. They negotiate with bandits, Emirate tells Tinubu. I think this is in relation to what yesterday we had when the former governor of Zamfara State, Yerima, is saying that the government can actually negotiate with the bandits. But I think if he gave instances of what happened during the Yaradua case when they had to negotiate with the Niger Delta. But to me, these are two different cases,
two different
because
things,
for the Niger Delta, we knew what really the problem was, and we've seen that we no longer have that issue. But for the bandits, what are we negotiating with them about? What do they want? Do the government owe them anything? So I think these are cases. There are two different scenarios. And personally, Rachel, to me personally, I don't think there's any negotiation with this bandit. Let us just look for a way to end all of this issue. Because if you see the people they even attack, we're talking about poor farmers. They have nothing.
Thank you very much.
So I hope. Hello, good morning.
On what Mr. Sam has just said. Yeah, morning, Stella. All of
Please
you.
go ahead, sir. We
I
are
want
with
to
you.
comment on what Mr. Guru Sam from Wari has said. In fact, this nation, they have no interest on common men. You know, that power sharing is all they are after. How I wish we can go back to the old days whereby in the Old Testament, Moses go and lead my people, and Moses say, I'm a camera. Nobody will want to go there when there is nothing. You understand? God bless Mr. Sam. Thank you very much. And thank God that you, Stella, you didn't cough today.
All right, thank you so much for your contribution. Yeah, Richard, do you want to add something to what I was saying?
Yes, Sele, of course, like there is need, there's no need to negotiate with bandits, even terrorists, Sele, because there has never been a conclusive decision when you negotiate with terrorists because the demands just keep flowing and flowing in. So I'm talking about the Boko Haram and any other group that have been declared as terrorist group. You can't even really negotiate with such people because once you meet one demand, another demand pops up and they just keep having thousands and thousands of reasons for the havoc they're creating. Talk about of people that you have claimed as a government to be unknown gunmen, and over the years their name just kept on evolving from herdsmen, unknown gunmen, and we call them bandits and all of that. And you can't negotiate with such people. For Yerima to say something like that, I wonder if he knows the people we should negotiate with, perhaps he should come out and say,
Richard,
I
you know my
know,
problem
yeah.
with that statement was the fact that we saw when the former governors are even snap pictures with these bandits. It made it to the paper where there were pictures to show that, okay, I've met with the bandits, we're able to come to maybe an understanding, if there was any understanding whatsoever. But where did that end up being? It seems as if that was where we ignited the fire to this whole of thing.
Exactly.
If you go to some of the checkpoints or you look some of this, checkpoints, especially where we have the military, there, I remember clearly where they said that for every head, I think, was it 500,000, was it 5 million? If
it
you
was 5 million, like
5 million for every bounty.
Yes.
Till date, in fact, I think recently when I was passing on my way home, because that is where I normally see, the banner has gone down. That's just to show you things that are happening. So
True.
I don't think there's really any negotiation. If we were yet to hear, okay, we're talking about the 400 prison break to date. You know where these people are. So a lot needs to be done. So I just really feel there's nothing to negotiate with these people at the end of the day.
With them,
Of course. So,
yeah.
well, let's look at other stories on New Telegraph newspaper. The big story on 10th Assembly Principal Officers. Adamu reject Apabio, Abbas choices, say selection mere rumor. You can find that story on page 2, 3, and 4. And also we have stopped depending on government jobs after graduation. Federal government tell Nigerians. We are committed to okay, I can't really get my writer here, but you can find more detail of that story on page 4 and 5. And well, of course, you can't depend on the government for job, but then if the environment can be conducive for you to generate something, we have people that have good skills. All they need is a conducive environment, maybe possibly grants coming from the government to actually support this skill. But with the issue of insecurity, Rachel, you will agree with me that it is quite difficult, especially looking at the issue of the fuel subsidy that has become very difficult for small and medium enterprises to stand on their own because of some of the policies that have been made. It's really frustrating the market as it is. So I hope that when the federal government come up with things like this, you should be able to do something to help Nigerians. We remember when ASU was against the student loan, they say rather than the loan, let us see grants and scholarship being given to students, because some of the, will I say, what's the word now? Some of the standards you need to meet for you to be able to get the loan, including getting somebody, a civil servant of 12, grade level 12 and above, earning more than 500,000 annually, or a lawyer that has been practicing for 10 years, and all of this thing. And then some Nigerians cannot even get access to people like this. Okay, if you're able to get, how do I get the job after service to be able to pay this? And here the government is saying we shouldn't depend on the federal government for job after graduation. So a lot of things tend to be will I say, conflicting at a time like this. So we hope to see that if you do not want graduates to depend on the system for a job, then make sure that the environment is conducive. We have experts that have left the country. Why? Because they feel maybe somewhere outside the country will support the skill that they have. Let us see, what is the government trying to do for those who are into the entertainment industry, those who are into the sports industry, and other places that we tend not to be paying so much attention that can fetch us so much money and boost our GDP. So we hope to see the government doing something for its graduates when they graduate, rather than telling them not to depend on it for any job whatsoever.
Of course, Stella, whether we like it or not, this statement came out of a place of failure, because the government have failed to be able to provide what is expected of them to the citizens of Nigeria. It became a normal statement where individuals, you and I, will tell ourselves, don't depend on the government. People will tell you, you can't depend. It became a motto at one certain point that everybody keeps saying that, and it has become a part of our system. It's normal for us to say, don't depend on the government. But then this statement, whether we like it or not, is coming out from a failed system, because the government have proved years over years and over time not to be dependable, and therefore we can't depend on the government. Because when you look at it, when you are running a mixed system of economy, for example, and we still have social and capitalist in play, then we have to depend on the government. Because I keep saying it, it is the government that have resources mass at its disposal. It is the government that has the capacity of employing millions and millions of its citizens. It is the government that do have the capacity of providing employment. It is the government that have the capacity of making sure that our GDP growth rate is good. It is the government that has the large majority of the resources to make sure that things move in the country. So why would you sit down as the government, knowing fully well that everything, the majority, is in your disposal, then tell the citizens that they shouldn't rely on you? Why shouldn't they rely on you? That is the question. Then it means you have failed to create employment, you have failed to create infrastructure, you have failed to build your sectors and all of that. And that is why you now start telling your citizens not to rely. And of course, we're not relying, but then we find ourselves in the private sector and we're being exploited, and the government doesn't even regulate it. So how are we not supposed to depend on our government, when even if we're supposed to be working under, for example, capital businesses owned by private sectors and all of that, we are supposed to have a government in there regulating this thing, putting an eye on it, making sure that regardless of what sector you find yourself, be it private or government, you're not being exploited, and you can say that you are earning as well as whoever is working in the government system. Therefore, we won't even have a situation or a problem where we would feel that people in the government are doing better, are benefiting better, and there's less exploit. These are all the things that the government are supposed to be in charge of and in control of. But however, they have failed in that level, and they will come out on the papers and keep telling us that we can't rely on them. That is a statement coming from a failed system, and I'm looking forward to where we would be having people confidently saying something like that.
You know, while you were talking, I just remember the former president when he said Nigerian youths are lazy, and they proved him wrong. And then he was like, we should go back to the farm. And then, you know, people are like, okay, are we talking about mechanized farming or manual farming if you want us to go back to the farm? So just like you said, it just shows that something is really wrong somewhere. So we hope the government fix that. We're still on New Telegraph newspaper, coming from INEC 2023 polls most meticulously planned. You can find detail of that story on page 3. And we have on adoption, I trek for 6 hours beating for inability to speak English, coming from Ransom Chief Imam. You can find that story on page 6. And on presidential poll, tribunal admits Tinubu's Chicago varsity record, US visa as exhibit. You can find detail on page 2 and 3. We have a study here that is talking about moderate alcohol consumption does not guard against diabetes and obesity. So for those who have been misled, you can actually find more of that study on page 28, and that's all on New Telegraph newspaper.
On New National Star, Governor Mba appoints Ladi Akeredolu Ale Managing Director, ESBS. You can find the details on page 19. Informants more dangerous than bandits, coming from General Ahmed. FCTA confirms outbreak of diphtheria in Abuja. Akume urges ex-ministerial aides to work for Tinubu's success. The big story on the paper, APC rejects principal officers announced by Akpabio and Abbas, says party has no input in election of officers. Wike floors Atiku as Tambuwal loses minority leader seat. Investigation on Mesoma's result falsification concluded, coming from JAM. And on economic reforms, we are on track, Tinubu tells visiting Bank of America delegation on page 13. And on 2023 polls, INEC engages 427 lawyers for 215 cases. At the downside of the paper, Ohaneze Indibo in Kaduna halls Governor Sani's inclusion of Igbos in cabinet. Nigeria, Angola, biggest oil drilling market in sub-Saharan Africa. You can find the details on page 14. Forensic experts working to unravel Ganduje's dollar clip. Kano anti-corruption boss. This is the coming from the anti-corruption boss in Kano. You can find the details of what the forensic experts are doing on page 12, and that's all the news on New National Star.
On this day newspaper coming from Makinde, we will unite Faturanti Adebajo in Yoruba's interest. You can find that story on page 34. And coming from Yakubu, 2023 election outcome, fair reflection of multi-party democracy, with some writer here that says INEC refer from joining issue with observers party orders over election outcome. You can read all of the writers under that story. The big story here on the 10th Senate, Bamidele is new Senate leader, Mwatcon leads the minority. You can find detail of the story and with other writers following that story as well. And we have IG orders deployment of 35 CPs to state command and formation. You can find that story inside. We have the picture story showing us the new Senate leader. You can do well to grab this day newspaper and read detail of story that is of interest to you.
On Nigerian News Direct, INEC vows to prosecute 215 electoral offenders airing Rex. APC NWC Akpabio Abbas at loggerheads. New telecom revenue assurance regime will kick off soon, coming from NCC. The big story on the paper is News Direct publishers exist. Cause of gallantry had to reconcile a BME's departure from 1968 to 2023. We send our condolences to Nigerian News Direct for their loss, and that's all the news on Nigerian News Direct.
All right, let's take a look at the Sweet Crew Report paper. Lekki Port receives first transshipment vessel. You can find detail of the story on the front page and inside the paper. Nigeria to save $5.1 billion from reforms this year. A report coming from the World Bank. And we have Seplet weight on Tinubu over acquisition of ExxonMobil Nigerian assets. You can find detail inside the paper. And we have trade crude oil spill as disaster. Yield tells federal government and oil operators. Of course, we hope to see something being done about that. And that's all on the paper. All right, let's take a look at the next one, Rachel.
On Business Day newspaper, we have the big story, how Nigerian leaders fail to rein in governance costs. And we have global race for talent heightens Japan wave. We have confusion as APC rejects names of National Assembly principal officers, why over 60% of Nigeria's land lacks titles. You can find the details on page 21, and that's all the news on Business Day newspaper.
Still from the world of business, let's take a look at the Business Standard newspaper. IMF team in Dakar to assist in developing local currency bond market. You can find detail of the story inside the paper. And we also have Dakar Daily set to launch trading in Ruby on 11 July. Also, ADB examine ways to boost Bangladesh India rail cargo link. You can see the picture here showing towards the rail cargo movement. You can find detail of that. And bank deposit on the rise. Also downside, we have women at higher risk as Daegu cases death rate alarmingly. You can find detail of that story inside the paper, and that's all on the Business Standard newspaper.
On Sporting Sun newspaper, Shola Ali's injury fair. Omuson Comacho Queen takes supremacy battle to Silesia. You can find the details on page 7. Igalo in talks to join another Saudi Arabian club. The big story now through Beck's agencies get me out of England. Return to Southampton training, Aribo missing. Osime gives the Lumelu Napoli jersey. You can find the details on page 6. We have Mbappe moved to Real Madrid at standstill. Haaland equals FP record set by Ronaldo, Thierry Henry, and Van Persie. We have Gerrard plans Liverpool raid for Henderson. You can find the details on page 2. Bayern to submit improved bid for Kane. Liverpool withdraws interest in Thuram. You can find the details on page 5. Eyimba Remo starts kickoff Niger Super 8 finals. Tyson Fury mugs rival Anthony Joshua. You can find the details at the back page of the paper, and that's all the news on Sporting Sun.
Thank you so much, Rachel,
You're
for doing
welcome,
this with
Sarah.
me. And that's how far we can go on the program, the Dailies this morning. Thank you so much to all who call in to contribute to the program. Thank you to the crew members, our producer, the general manager, and also to our supporters. Until we come your way again, stay tuned for a lineup of other programs.